Hello, uni students, teachers, and staff, and welcome to our third quarter all-school assembly. I'm sorry we can't be together all in Uni Gym or Kenny Gym, but I'm very glad that we're at least together in the building and that we're able to be in school in person. As I said at the winter party, I've really appreciated every single day we've been able to be together in person in school this year. So thank you again to all of you for all the ways you've helped us remain in school in person. All the tests you've taken, your care and cooperation in wearing your masks, and participating in all the changes in our policies as we've moved on through the school year. As I like to do, I'm going to start today's assembly with a poem. So this is Because You Asked About the Line Between Prose and Poetry by Howard Nemerov. Sparrows were feeding in a freezing drizzle that as he watched turned into pieces of snow, riding the gradient invisible from silver aslant to random, white and slow. There came a moment you couldn't tell, and then they clearly flew instead of fell. So I thought of this poem a couple weeks ago as I was standing at my kitchen window looking at the rain outside and trying to decide, as it seemed to change, as the temperature outside changed, whether it was rain or freezing rain or sleet or snow. And over the course of about 5 minutes, it appeared to shift from rain to sleet to maybe snow. I wasn't sure. I had to really pay close attention to see what was going on. So I love the poem because it's seasonal and it captures something that we sometimes experience at this time of year. But I also love it because it's about more than one thing at one time. It's about the line between snow and rain, but it's also about the line between prose and poetry. And I appreciate the fact that the poet Howard Nemerov trusts us enough as his readers to understand that we will get that even though all he's describing is weather, he's really talking about the line between prose and poetry, which can also be hard to discern, and we have to pay close attention, and sometimes it's a little more complex than one or the other. I think it's also an apt poem to introduce our first speaker today, Alana Redstone from the Department of Sociology at the U of I. Dr. Redstone studies viewpoint diversity and communicating across ideological divides. And her work can help us see that binary thinking is not productive and that instead we should try to see the complexities and some maybe of the gray areas in situations that might seem at first to just have two simple sides. Dr. Redstone's message for us is really important and her work is really important because, as we all know, there's a lot of pretty difficult divides creating problems in our country and our world right now. And if we want to make anything happen in this world, particularly if we want to make big, important change, we have to be able to talk to people who see things differently than us. We have to be able to talk to people who may disagree with us or who may agree with us in one way but disagree in another. So I'm looking forward to having you hear what she has to say about that. After Dr. Redstone speaks, we'll hear a message from uni students Ariana and Madeline with some tips and resources to help all of us improve our mental health. And then we'll hear a message from Kim Bryan of the local organization Rattle the Stars about suicide and awareness and prevention. Finally, we'll end with some tips from Ms. Amy, representing the health and safety team, about mask wearing and mask storage. So thanks very much to the health and safety team for all your hard work to keep our school safe and keep us in school in person. Thanks to sixth period teachers for taking the time and care to make this assembly possible in your sixth period classrooms during the assembly window. Thanks to the students for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the assembly.
Hi, I'm Alana Redstone. I'm on the faculty here at the U of I, on campus here in the Department of Sociology. I'm also the founder of Diverse Perspectives Consulting and of another organization called the Mill Center for the Advancement of Critical Thinking. And my work in all of those spaces is about viewpoint diversity and building a culture that welcomes a wide range of perspectives and that is open to open communication on a wide range of issues. And today I'm going to talk about just one piece of that, which is the problem of binary thinking. So in this work on this topic, I am assuming that viewpoint diversity matters. We could have a discussion about that, but my starting place is that having a culture that welcomes a diversity of perspectives is an important thing to nurture. So the reality is that a lot of things can get in the way of that culture, and binary thinking is one of the most important ones. So binary thinking, I want to just pause for a second. Binary in this case, you may be familiar with the word binary in the sense of code, from computer code. In this case, we're talking about, so the prefix is the same, obviously, bi. We're talking about two choices that are presented in answers to questions where there really are more than two possible answers. So you might think of it as a false binary. So again, you're sort of presented with a question as though it has only two possible answers, but that's not in fact the case. And we'll talk about some concrete examples. So here's an example of a false binary that doesn't touch a sort of sensitive topic or a controversial topic, which is what I usually work with. Either you like BTS or you hate music. And you could substitute here BTS for any other artist that you want, right? But this kind of statement should make you rightfully say, well, wait, I'm not sure that's true. I could not like BTS and not hate music. I could just maybe not like BTS, right? So that would be the obvious. So there's a third choice at least that's not being presented in that statement. So the problem comes in, that statement is obviously problematic, but what I'm focused on here are different kinds of questions that you see in politics, you see in advertising, and you see around, which we'll get to, particularly controversial issues. So in politics, an example might be, vote for me or live through 4 more years of higher taxes. Someone running for office might say this. Or in advertising, they might say, the makers of a product might say, if you don't use our beauty products, you'll never look youthful. Well, right, both of those could raise additional questions for you, or should raise additional questions for you, that those are not the only two possible options. I do want to point out that sometimes there are, in fact, two choices, right? Sometimes we are limited to two choices. Like you could imagine a scenario like this, that maybe you remember from when you were younger, or maybe you have younger siblings, or maybe you still experience this, where a parent says, we can go home or you can behave in the grocery store. There is no in between. Either you're going to behave or we're going home. And in that case, the binary makes sense, right? But on the other examples, it's less so, right? And then when it comes to controversial questions, it gets even more complicated. So what about questions that touch on morals and values? And so what we're going to think about is, what does binary thinking mean in those cases? And what it tends to mean is essentially this. Either you agree with me or you're a bad person. And again, if you go back to the beginning and what I said about building a culture and a climate that is open to a diverse set of perspectives, this works directly against that, this type of thinking. So, again, I want to remind you, sort of like the BTS example, on certain topics, this is not as controversial. This doesn't become as heated. For example, consider the following. Which is the best way to hang toilet paper? Does it roll out from the bottom? Should it roll over from the top? People can have very heated disagreements about this. But in general, it's not going to, the disagreement generally in this case won't lead to a conclusion about the other person's moral character. It won't lead to this, you're a bad person, in the way that some disagreements on some more sensitive and controversial issues will. For example, here are 3. So these kinds of questions tend to be harder. So for instance, either you think that biology and gender are totally unrelated, or you're transphobic. Either you think that we should have an open border policy, so no restrictions on immigration, or you're racist. Either you think that students shouldn't read works by, quote, dead white men, close quote, or you don't care about minority authors. These are all false binaries. They're all false dichotomies. These are not the only two options that are available to you. And recognizing that is a really important step for building this culture that we're talking about. To be clear, this kind of claim can come from anywhere on the political spectrum, right? The same would be true of the following statement. Either you think that Trump was the most incredible president ever, or you hate this country, right? This would be lumped into the same category. So all of these should make you stop for a second and say, wait, I don't know about this. Are those really the only two options that I have? I'm not sure that's right. So we know that that's what we need to do. So why is this hard? It seems fairly straightforward. It's hard because, one, it's not something that many of us are used to doing. But there's another bigger problem too, and that's that we can't see someone else's motives. Now, why does that matter? On the kinds of issues that I gave examples of earlier, why does that matter? It matters because there are, in fact, hateful motives for some positions. So, for example, if you go back, if you just look at this, we'll take the second example. Either you think that we should have no restrictions on immigration, or you're racist. So it is clearly the case that there are some people who are motivated, who advocate for immigration restrictions, who are driven by whether it's xenophobia, sort of a fear of foreigners, or racial hostility, racial animosity. There's no question that there are some people that are motivated, that again, their position for their advocacy for immigration restrictions is motivated by those sentiments. It is a leap to go from there to assuming that everyone who holds that position has a sinister motive. So the alternative, the option 3 in that false binary would be, well, could somebody advocate for immigration restrictions and not be driven by racial animus or racial hostility? And so that's that third option that's lost in the false binary. So our steps to move beyond this: one, we need to identify a dichotomy, specifically a false dichotomy when we see it. We need to ask ourselves whether those are the two options, whether the two options presented are really the only possible ones. And then more specifically, we need to think about what other possible options exist. And then you also need to ask yourself how you might be able to, or if you might be able to, tell the difference between the two scenarios that we talked about just on the previous slide. So whether someone is motivated by racial animus or racial hostility, or whether they're not, because this plays a direct role into sort of really unpacking that false binary. So none of this is easy. I don't mean to suggest that it is, but it is important. And hopefully this has given you some points to think about, a starting point for a conversation that you can continue to have as you go forward. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you today.
Hi everyone, my name is Ariana Mizan and I'm your Exec SPAC president.
And my name's Madeline Keenan and I'm the Executive Stud Co-President. And we're here to talk to you guys about mental health. During the season, we know that this is a time when a lot of people have mental health struggles, especially during the winter. We just wanted to remind you of some things and share with you some resources.
Yeah, so we also know that on top of the mid-year blase, there's also the added fear and anxiety surrounding what the future of our semester might look like. And so right now it's extremely important to acknowledge how we feel and to respond to how we feel. And so this is a general reminder to try to be proactive in self-care and also be proactive in being kind to the people around you, because you never know what they're going through. And so, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about how we like to take care of ourselves and our mental health. So, Madeline, would you like to kick us off?
So I like to make sure that I maintain a schedule, like a healthy schedule, and I like to get lots of exercise, get lots of sleep, and spend lots of time with my dog. And I sort of have the attitude that I can't really control others around me or what they choose to put on me, the amount of homework I get, stuff like that. But I can change my attitude and my habits. What do you like to do, Ariana?
I like to spend a lot of time with my family and the people around me, and try to take active breaks rather than passive breaks. So for me, a passive break would look like moving from one screen to another. I just finished my homework on my laptop and now I am mindlessly scrolling through the void of Instagram or TikTok. So for me, I'm trying to unplug from social media and try to be more present with people around me. And that's been helping my general wellness and also my productivity as well. But we also know that these tips are individual and personal to us. They might work for you, they might not. So we also wanted to share some resources as well.
Okay, so you can find all of these resources at the tiny URL, tinyurl.com/mentalhealthuni. We wanted to share the RACE's sexual assault helpline, the National Suicide Hotline, the Trevor Project Hotline, and some links to online therapy services. So again, the link is tinyurl.com/mentalhealthuni. You might want to write that down or just remember it, type it into your notes app. These can be some great resources for people around you or for yourself if you're struggling.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, and have a good second semester. Bye.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Bryan with Rattle the Stars Suicide Prevention. I know talking about suicide can be really hard, but I also know that there are likely people listening to this who are having thoughts of suicide, or people who are concerned about or know someone who is having thoughts of suicide. So I want to give you some information on what to do if that's happening to you. Most importantly, I want to encourage you to talk to adults that you trust. So think about the adults in your life that you feel safe with, that you feel comfortable with, that you feel would be understanding and supportive. This could be your parents, or it could be another family member, like an older sibling or an aunt or an uncle. It could be someone at school, like a counselor or a teacher or a coach. It could also be someone in your community, like a faith leader or a neighbor. Once you've decided on who your trusted adults are, make a plan to talk to them. Now, you may feel a little scared or uneasy talking to them face to face, and that's okay. If it's more comfortable for you, you can also send a text or an email or write a note or make a video, whatever works for you to get this out and start this conversation. If you need some support, it's okay to talk with a friend, but your friend has to help make sure that you talk to that trusted adult. This is not something to keep secret. If you don't do it, your friend has to do it for you. Now, if this is a situation where you or your friend is planning to attempt suicide, you need to get immediate help. Find the closest adult and tell them right away. Your friend may be mad at you, but at least they'll still be here. Next, I want to share some other support resources with you. These hotlines can be really beneficial for people having thoughts of suicide, but they can be helpful to others as well. You can use these if you're worried about someone and need some support or guidance. You can use these if you are self-harming, if you've had something really traumatic happen, if you're really stressed out or upset, or if you just need someone to talk to. These hotlines are for anyone, for any reason that they need support. So you can text the crisis text line at 741-741. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. If you are LGBTQ and you want affirming support from other LGBTQ people, you can contact the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386, or you can text them at 678-678. And all of these hotlines are available 24/7, 365. So you can reach someone literally anytime that you need to. Also, if you're a little unsure or uneasy about doing this, you can go to their website and they have information about what happens when you contact them, so you can know what to expect and feel more comfortable. Now, personally, I've had thoughts of suicide too, so I know that this can be really scary, but it's just something that happens to people sometimes. Sometimes it's because of what's happening in our bodies, sometimes it's because of what's happening to us in our lives, and sometimes it's a combination of both. Whatever the reason, it's not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you, and it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. There are ways that things can get better. There are people who care about you. There are people who will support you. And everyone most definitely will not be better off without you. People really do love you just the way you are. For more information, to learn about other support resources, or to contact us, go to our website at rattlethestars.org. Thank you all, and take care of each other.
Hi everyone, Happy New Year from the Health and Safety Committee. As we go into a new year, we want to make sure that we are staying healthy and safe, especially because we want to remain in person and learning together. One of the ways that we can do that is to make sure that we are wearing and storing our masks well. So we just want to take a few minutes to go over proper mask wearing and mask storage. With the new recommendation of KN95 or KF94 masks, we wanted to give you some tips of how to store them and wear them properly. Having a proper fit is very important in how to optimize the effectiveness of your mask. If you are not covering the proper areas of your face, then your mask wearing will be ineffective. Whether you have the type of mask that has the band around the ear, or some might have the band around the head and the neck, in either case, you want to make sure that your mask is tightly around your face. Not too tight, but snugly fitting. Most of us have a wire across the nose, so you want to make sure you push that down so there's no gaps or holes. And overall, you just want a snug fit around your face where there aren't too many gaps or holes. The average lifespan for a KN95 or a KF94 mask is approximately 40 hours. So if you're keeping your mask clean and unspoiled, or if it doesn't have any rips and tears, then you can use them again. However, if you are using them for a long period of time after school, or if you're using them during sports, then we would recommend that you switch them out more frequently. We recommend doing this by storing your masks in paper bags. If you have 2 alternating paper bags, you can store one mask in day 1 and wear your day 2 mask. And then the next day, wear your day 1 mask while your day 2 mask rests. You also want to make sure that you are not contaminating the inside of your mask. Particles and the virus could be on the front of your mask, so you want to make sure that you're not touching the front of your mask, even as you remove it. So instead of taking it off just by holding any part of the front, you can just take it off the sides, and if it's foldable, you can fold your mask, or you can just carry it by the ear strings. Even as you're storing your mask in your paper bag, you want to make sure that you're not touching the front of your mask, and you want to make sure that the inside of your mask is as clean as possible. You can even cut some slits in your paper bag and hook the ear straps in so they're not falling in to contaminate the inside of your mask. Lastly, this is just a reminder that there are KN95 masks in the office if you need them. But also, thank you so much for just being such cooperative and conscientious members of our uni community. We're so thankful that we can be in person and be together, but it wouldn't be possible without all our support and working together. So we want to thank you so much for that. Happy mask wearing!